If we started that yet. There we go. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. All right. Thank you both and everyone for being here and representing ASHP and APHA. Amy, Bridget, and I go way back and have worked together a long time, so it's really great to come together for these sessions to help create awareness of community residency. I still feel like my residency was last year, not whatever many years ago it was. So thanks everybody. All right, let's not introduce, but kind of tease you with our resident panel later on. So a big part of the session here is for you to hear from immediate past residents so they can tell you their stories and share with you their experiences so that you can get to know community residency a little bit better by with people that just did it rather than those of us that maybe did it a little while ago. So we're joined tonight by Catherine and Emma, and they'll join us after my little pre-presentation so that you can get to know them and you see where they did their residencies there, and they'll tell you more about them. But we're going to tease you. We're excited to have them with us, so we appreciate their time this evening. So what's going to happen, I was going to share a little bit about community residency in general so you can get an idea if you've never really heard of what community residency is. It's very brief, very high level, because I didn't want to take too much time because we wanted the time to be spent with hearing from our past residents and for you to ask questions. So as I go through this, please be thinking about what questions you have or jot them down so that you can ask them for that. If you have questions about any of this content I'm about to go through, feel free to put it in the chat. I'll wait and address it at the end of the information before we start with the resident panel. And then as we're going through the resident panel, you can submit your questions in the chat. If you want to verbally ask your question, turn your camera on or not, or just verbally, feel free. We love the interaction. So please feel free to do that. But if you just want to put it in the chat, we're okay with that also. Any way you want to communicate your questions. We want this to be about you and answering your questions. So please do ask away when the time comes. All right. So what is a residency program? If you're really new to this, it is a 1 or 2 year postgraduate training program. You get experience working with pharmacists and other healthcare professionals. Team-based care is a big part of residency. Different residencies will have different levels of that team-based approach, but that's a big part of making sure that you're not just working with pharmacists, but with all different types of healthcare professionals. And then a real big part of it is direct patient care. So that's a big differentiator between residency and fellowship. Fellowship often is not direct patient care. Excuse me. And so residency, its primary focus is. Let me get a sip. Okay. So I really wanted to point that out. Then there's different kinds of programs. So ASHP accredits PGY1 and PGY2 residency programs. So we're not going to go into the PGY2 because we just want to focus on your first year after residency. Essentially, that's why there's the one. PGY2 is the second year after you graduate. So PGY1 pharmacy residency is accredited just by ASHP. It is traditionally in hospital settings, health system settings, could be in others, ambulatory settings and so on. It varies. And then there's PGY1 community-based residency. It's accredited in collaboration with APHA, as it's been mentioned. And I'll go into more details about different settings community-based could be a part of. Then there's also managed care PGY1 residencies. So those are the three PGY1 sole residency program types. And then there can be combined PGY1 and PGY2 residencies. There are multiple in both health system and community settings. And so community-based pharmacy administration and leadership is what's in the community-based setting. And some programs may offer a master's degree with it, and some may not. So you'd want to look into that if you're interested. But yeah, if you're really interested in management, administration, leadership, there's not a lot of programs with this, but it would really make you stand out as far as propelling your career forward with regards to that. So those are the different types, and we're going to focus on community-based residency. So what is community-based residency? It is a postgraduate training program. So after your PharmD, some people do it right after their PharmD, others come back and do it later on in their career. That's fine too. And so it's education and outcomes to develop community-based pharmacist practitioners who provide care for patients in communities where they live and work. So as a resident, you'll get experience and skills in diverse patient care. So again, the patient care is really the primary objective of residency, but then you'll also get experiences with practice management, leadership, and education, educating both patients as well as helping with pharmacy students or other types of students. So education in a broad sense. After you do a residency program, you'll be prepared to perform that patient care, to seek board certification if you want, and pursue additional training also if you want. So if you completed an accredited PGY1 program, you're eligible to apply for PGY2 residencies. And I'll share a little bit more about what type of residencies some community-based residents have gone on to after their community residency. It is just a 1 year program. It is definitely advanced. You could accomplish a lot in the 1 year. Advances you beyond your training as a PharmD graduate. You get experiences being mentored by premier community-based pharmacy practitioners. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways I had from my residency was the mentorship through it. You know, had so many mentors that honestly I'm still in touch with today. And I always hoped that for my residents going through my program was that I could mentor them and we would stay in touch. And I've stayed in touch with majority of them. I can't say I've stayed in touch with everyone because I had 50 to 60 residency graduates over the year, but a lot of them did. And so it's great to see. One was just here running the Chicago Marathon over the weekend. So it was great to see her. So anyway, you'll focus. So a big part of it, I think, hopefully you'll get out of this is mentorship through the residency and then after the residency by those mentors you grew close to throughout that time. Hopefully, you'll focus on supporting the local community that the residency is a part of through health and wellness services, medication education, and other community volunteerism. And then lastly, again, we want to drive home that it is accredited in a partnership between APHA and ASHP. So here's all the different settings that a community-based residency could be a part of, and that's why it's termed community-based. One, based in the community in which you live and work, like we talked about. But then also there's so many different types of settings. So it used to be called community pharmacy residency directly, but we added that based in because we wanted to make sure it represented all the different settings that this residency could take place in. And so you see it up there on the screen. I'm not going to read every one, but popular ones are your, of course, community pharmacy, anything from independent to grocery store chain to large major chain like Walgreens, CVS, so on. And those are your traditional. And then moving into other, what maybe non-traditional of that you might not think of with community-based would be ambulatory care clinics or primary care provider offices. There's specialty pharmacies. One of our resident representatives tonight is from a specialty pharmacy. Huge growth in specialty pharmacy residencies under the community-based residency umbrella, and so on, as you see there. So some popular ones and a lot of different types of settings. So if you're interested in community residency, it can be in any of those settings. And so when you're seeking out opportunities, you want to make sure to check to see where are these residencies housed, what type of opportunities do they have, what type of patient care, so that you know if it meets what you're looking for in a residency. So lots of great opportunities. So the learning experiences that you'll get during a residency I mentioned earlier, but I wanted to drive a little bit deeper. So, of course, patient care, but what does that mean in the community-based setting? A lot of medication therapy management, working with patients in the management of their meds, working with other providers in management of patient meds. And that can mean a lot of different things from not just the telephonic review of a patient's overall medication profile. It could be drilled down into specific disease states. When it comes to specialty, it would be medication management of the meds of which they're getting and then other meds that they're taking along with it. You might have chronic disease state management, so meaning you're helping a patient manage the disease over a longer period of time, like perhaps diabetes, hypertension, and so on. And so you get to maybe see that patient over and over and helping them manage that disease state. And that can be very fulfilling. You'll have opportunities with wellness and prevention, so immunizations, screenings to see if they need to get into more care. And so that's really wonderful there. And those have really blossomed beyond just like typical finger sticks or a blood pressure check to things like oral swabs for flu and COVID and so on. So that's really grown in the community-based setting. You may get experience with acute care management for minor illnesses in like primary care or urgent care, immediate care, all those kind of mean this a similar thing. And so you might have opportunities there. And then lastly, transitions of care. It's a big component of the residency standard and objectives that you have to accomplish to help patients transition through different cares that they are levels of care that they're getting. Then, of course, so why you see the patient care is a big part of residency. That's why it takes up the one side of the slide. The other side, while they're also very important, fit in the remaining amount of time that you have in a residency. So you'll help advance practice by doing quality improvement projects, pharmacy practice projects. Some do a big research project. Others might do, it might not be like full-blown research, but it's still research in a sense. You're usually analyzing some sort of data wherever you get that from and turning that into a final report and presentation. You'll get a lot of experience with leadership and management. Usually your residency in itself will expose you to leaders in the organization in which you're doing the residency. And so you'll have specific activities that are developed for you to experience that, but you'll also, just by way of interacting with leaders in that organization, get experience, hopefully get some mentorship. You'll get practice managing people, managing technicians, maybe other pharmacists while you're in the workflow of a dispensing prescriptions. And so you'll get some management experience there. And last but not least, getting education experience. So you'll teach maybe presentations to other healthcare providers, other pharmacists, students. You'll precept a student in different ways. And so lots of great experiences. I'm excited just talking about it again because, yeah, that's why I did a residency, was because I wanted all of this in my first year after school. It was a wonderful experience. So benefits of completing it, you're like, why should I do this? Spend a year after residency? I mean, after my PharmD to do this, you'll be a part of a competitive job market. And so this is a real advantage because you'll have specialized skills in the area in which you did your community-based residency. You'll have other, more leadership management exposure as others in that same time frame that you are applying for jobs after your residency. You can have long-term career satisfaction and advancement. None of this is guaranteed. It's, of course, what you put into it. But I wouldn't be where I am if it didn't start out with residency. That triggered a ripple effect and a snowball effect of then experiences after that. And I know I'm just an N of one, but I know a lot of people where residency helped propel them. Of course, you can do a lot of things and have great career satisfaction without a residency, but residency is one way to do it. You'll have networking opportunities. Like I said, you'll inherently meet leadership in your organization, but you'll probably your residency directors are well connected usually in all of pharmacies, so you'll get networking opportunities with them, develop as a leader through the experience, and then really have rapid growth in your personal, clinical, and leadership skills. I couldn't tell you the difference I saw between when my resident walked in the first day to when they left the last day. Their growth was tremendous. And honestly, all of them, everybody grew in a tremendous amount of fashion in that short 1 year. So you really will grow in that year. And the residents that we have on the panel here are examples of that. All right, so after you do a community-based residency, what could you do? All up here on the screen in front of you. Lots of opportunities. Everything we mentioned, you're eligible for board certification, so you could sit for the board certification for ambulatory care pharmacy. They have certain requirements, so you'd have to make sure you meet all of those after residency, but residency is one of those requirements if you wanted to do that. Then you're eligible for all PGY2 residencies, but typically you'll go into certain ones after community-based. You wouldn't necessarily maybe track into a critical care type of residency, but ambulatory care, pain and palliative care, psychiatric pharmacy are three main ones I've seen community-based residents go into after their PGY1 community residency. So, but you could go into even more. There's a lot of other PGY2 residencies other than just those three. And then you can see everything from an ambulatory care pharmacist to a clinical care coordinator at a community chain, independent or managed care setting, academia, consultant pharmacy. You could be a residency program director yourself one day, a specialty pharmacist. It's so many opportunities there. So it's great to see that your trajectory could go a lot of different ways. So is a community-based residency right for you? So these are questions to ask yourself in thinking about that. It's more for your information. I'm not going to read every one, but do you want to help patients make the best use of their meds? Do you want to help them incorporate their healthcare into activities of daily living and so on? So ask yourself these questions to decide, is a community residency the type of residency that you want to go into, or just a residency in general? So let's start to think about what questions we want to ask our resident panel. So I'm going to ask Catherine and Emma to turn on their cameras and join us. Um, Also, if anyone had any questions from anything I just mentioned specifically, but a lot of it can get covered with the residents there. All right. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves because they're the best persons to tell you about them. So we'll start in this order. And Catherine, let's start with you.
Hi, everyone. As Nathan said, my name is Catherine Mudis. I graduated from Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee, and I recently completed the Revelation Pharma Innovation Compounding PGY1 community-based residency program in Kennesaw, Georgia. And I am currently a sterile compounding pharmacist at Eagle Pharmacy, which is a 503B outsourcing facility. And this is still within the Revelation Pharma network.
Great. Thank you. Well, I'm sure we'll hear more about that in a little bit. But
Mhm.
Emma, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emma Hilgendorf. I went to pharmacy school at the Medical College of Wisconsin. It's just outside of Milwaukee in Wauwatosa, but it's basically a suburb. And after pharmacy school, I completed a residency at Walgreens Specialty Pharmacy. The program was partnered as well with the Medical College of Wisconsin, so I got to hang around the school for another year. And now I'm still with Walgreens. I am within specialty as well, up in Green Bay, where I'm from. And I am a pharmacy manager and clinical pharmacist at the site up in Green Bay.
Excellent. Again, thank you both for joining us this evening. We wanted to have representation from kind of more independent, even though, as you mentioned, Catherine, there's a network. We'll hear a little bit more about that, but it's still truly kind of an independent site, and then a national chain to represent. So you can get perspectives from both. So we'll start off with some questions while everyone's figuring out what specific questions they want to ask. So let's start with, kind of the typical, what drew you to complete a community-based pharmacy residency program? Because a lot of people listening may be thinking about why would I do one? And so what drew you? They may draw inspiration out of your answer. So we'll start with Catherine again first.
Yeah. So to be honest, when I was deciding what to do after graduating, I originally wanted to do a fellowship. I knew that hospital residency wasn't for me, and it wasn't until I found my residency program that I really thought it was a good fit. And that was mostly because I liked how it combined aspects of a fellowship because of that network side of Revelation Pharma, but I also got the direct patient care. And it also had compounding, which was something that I was already interested in. So I didn't really come to community-based pharmacy. Um, First, it was more of I found a program that was a good fit for me.
I love that that's your answer because a lot of people may have that same thought, like that they don't get to it directly. So I love that you eventually ended up there and it blended things you're looking for, like you said, from fellowship as well as
Mhm.
direct patient care. So thank you for sharing that. Emma, how about you?
So for me, residency was not very much on my radar at all until about 2 months before applications were due. So a little bit of a different path to getting there. So going into pharmacy school, my plan was just to be a retail pharmacist, and I was totally fine with that. I was excited. I've been with Walgreens for 6 years now, and so I back in I was working up in Green Bay, so I was at a bunch of the different stores in the area, and I knew people, and I just thought I'd go back and help out at one of those stores. And so then in my appy year, I had a rotation at Walgreens Specialty where I actually ended up completing my residency. And I really just wanted to see what specialty was like because I knew about Walgreens, right? And I thought, well, when I'm a pharmacist and I received packages from specialty at my site for patients to come pick up. So it'd be interesting to see what they're doing over there. So my intent was just to kind of get an idea and bring that back to what I would be doing at retail. So I completed the rotation and I absolutely loved it. So much hands-on patient care. Like, even though it's Walgreens, it was still so much different from retail. We even say now that we're kind of a happy medium between AmCare and retail, and we'll probably get into that more, what that looks like as we go along tonight. But at that time, there at my site, there wasn't a residency program. I had no idea. So a few months down the road in November, my one of my preceptors and who was my RPD emailed me to tell me about the opportunity. And it was around the same time that I was really starting to second guess myself of just going into retail. All my peers were doing hospital residency. I was in my acute care rotation and everybody, there were lappy students there, all the pharmacists there completed a residency, and I thought, like, am I like messing this up? Do I need to be doing a residency? Like, am I going to be ready to be like an independent pharmacist, like working on my own in just a few months at graduation? And so then I finally just decided, no, that wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to do retail. And then it was like a few days later, I got this email saying, hey, we have a new program. Just want to, let you know about the opportunity. And so I started thinking, and like, that actually sounds like what I want to do. That sounds perfect. So I got a lot more information on the program. I was still with MCW, so I was familiar with that aspect of it. And I knew it was coming, with all the patient care opportunities. And it was perfect. And I thought maybe even up to the point that was I doing the right thing? Just because it's such a big decision, right? Like committing a full year after graduation when you could be working. Um, just like a normal pharmacist, or just investing one more year into your education. And it was hard for me at that time to really understand how much of an impact the residency would have on me in my like professional growth, the my clinical knowledge that grew tremendously, and even in different ways, right, than retail versus specialty. So all that to say is I kind of took a unique path to get to residency, and it was all worth it.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you for sharing that. And there's all different paths that lead to residency or to your career, however that is through, even if it is in residency. And so you kind of stayed close to home. You found out about it, and you're even close to home, still in Wisconsin. Catherine, did you move far for your residency? And then, I know you moved far for your job. So if you don't mind sharing, your thoughts behind that, if you don't mind, so that people can see,
Yeah,
is moving far right for me or staying close to home?
of course. And I've always moved around. So I'm actually originally from New Jersey. So I moved to Nashville for pharmacy school. And then I knew that for the different areas I was looking at, I would most likely have to move. So a lot of fellowships were in like back at home in the New
New
Jersey
Jersey.
area.
Mhm.
Um, but for compounding, I didn't really know how to get my foot in that door. So when this residency program popped up, it didn't really matter to me where it was because it was so unique. So I felt like if this was something I wanted to do, then moving was the best decision for me.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Um, I wanted to bring that up because I also moved across the country for my residency way back in the day. I'm from New Jersey originally too, grew up there, went to Rutgers University, thought I was going to stay. And then I was introduced to residency in October of my P4 year. So it's never too late to find out. And it was back in the earlier days of community residency, so there weren't as many around there any at that point. So I had to, when I saw those in research, I was like, oh, this is for me. This is cool. I had to move also. Like if what I wanted to do, there wasn't one in New Jersey or really in that mid-Atlantic region at that time because it was so long ago. So I wanted to make sure to bring it up. Sometimes, sometimes you want to stay close and it works out to stay close to home and family, and that's great if you can do that. Other times you may need to open yourself up to, move for the residency, and you think it's a year. That's what I told myself. I was like, it's a year, let me go. I moved to Texas. I never even thought of Texas well before. No offense to Texas, but it just wasn't in my realm in the Northeast. And so I just, if you're out there and you're considering that and you're like, oh, it's scary. Yeah, it was scary. I didn't know a single soul in Houston where I did mine. But you eventually do. You meet people and so on. So,
Yeah, I
Catherine,
also wanted to mention that if you broaden the area that you're looking in, you can really find a lot more programs. It kind of just casting a wider net gives you
mhm,
that opportunity.
absolutely. Thanks for that. So let's move into question two. You've both kind of brought up some qualities that you looked for in a residency, but let's really dig in and make sure that we cover everything you looked at. So what qualities were you specifically looking for when you were looking at a program? So I know, Catherine, you mentioned you were looking at fellowships. So maybe talk about what were the specifics at the program that you completed that blended that fellowship and direct patient care. And then we'll get Emma's thoughts as well. And I promise I won't always go to Catherine first. We'll switch that up.
Yeah, one of the things I was really looking at were what types of rotations were offered. So at my residency program, we have Revelation Pharma, which is the parent company, and then they own about 20 different compounding pharmacies across the United States. So what was really cool about the program were there were rotations where I got to spend with uh, more of the Revelation Pharma corporate side. So something I was really interested in was the research and development rotation. We also got some more like managerial like rotations where we got to have meetings with the executive team. And then so those kind of pulled in those fellowship ideas that I really liked. But another thing that I was looking for in a program was I really wanted like a educational or precepting opportunity. So at our program, we partnered with Texas Tech University. So we got to complete their program in uh, just teaching and precepting. And then another couple different qualities that I was looking for was flexibility and the option to cater the program to my interests. So since this was my program's first year, we were still really building the program out, and they were really open to any feedback that I gave them or really creating a rotation based off of my interests. And then just remember that when you are interviewing with a program, you are interviewing them as well. So I was really looking for like a welcoming community or family type feeling to make sure that I felt like it was a good fit for me.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. And then obviously things worked out where now you're working at a affiliated place of your residency program. So that's
Mhm.
great that criteria or quality you're looking at of that corporate interest with that multiple sites worked out in the end for your long-term employment. So that's great.
Mhm.
And then Emma, what specific qualities did you look for in a program once you started looking?
So the program that I completed was the only one that I applied for. In my mind, I thought, well, if I don't get this, then I'm just gonna go
Okay.
revert to my original plan. But I think the things that draw me to committing to applying would be, well, first it was familiar to me, right? So Walgreens I was with, and then I had a rotation with my at the site. So I think that's to say too, there's a lot of programs out there that I know have appy opportunities. So even just looking at thinking ahead, and if that's something that you're interested in and maybe a residency, look for a sooner opportunity for like an appy rotation to just get a little bit of a sneak peek of what it might be, and if that truly is your interest. Um, Another thing was I was the first resident in the program, and I kind of went both ways on this. Like, oh, does anybody really know what they're doing here? But then it kind of um, was good in the other way, that we didn't really know what we were doing, or we didn't have like a set plan, maybe per se. So I was flexible, right? We could kind of shape the program into what worked well for me as well. So in my program, I know even after the first year continues to be flexible with the resident too. So I think that's something, just having that mindset of the site and the preceptors was really drew me in as well.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. So, all programs that you apply to should have some sort of set structure up front, but it definitely, if they're new, there's a lot of learning and growing in that first year, which helps with that molding that both Catherine and Emma both experienced in their residency. And so, yeah, those are good questions to ask. Have you had a resident before? What have you changed? How have you grown? Or you might be the one that wants to be a part of that first year residency to help them grow and learn and mold that residency into what it's going to be moving forward. So that's wonderful. I definitely related to you, Emma, when you were like, it was comfortable. You knew I also did a residency at a company that I was previously employed at too. So I was like, yeah, that'd be nice. I know the system already and so on. So that can definitely be a plus. But also going in and starting at a new company and learning new as well is definitely adds to your learning during a residency program. Okay, so we're moving on to our third question that we have to start. I haven't seen any come through the chat yet, so come on, everybody, think of questions to ask Emma and Catherine, and please put them into the chat. We want to make sure that we get your questions answered. So, what is the biggest piece of advice that you have for our audience when pursuing a residency? Let's start this one with Emma.
Great. So a piece of advice, I think, to the resident now that's at the site I was at, and just thinking, being a part of her application process as well, and listening to her story too, is and what I felt as well, don't feel pressured really to do something. I know we're focused on community pharmacy tonight, but even within that too, like just staying true to what your goals are as well, and looking at programs that will prepare you for where you ultimately want to be. So for example, the resident at my site now, she wants to be an AmCare pharmacist, and so people were telling her, "Oh, you've just gotta go to the VA. That's where it's at for AmCare." And so she just, the first round, she just went all into the VA, and that really narrows things down, right? And if you don't match, you kind of stuck yourself there. You didn't really broaden and find other experiences that may actually be a better fit, looking at your long-term goals. So she also had somewhat of the hospital focus kind of influence on her when she was in her rotation. So she looked into that, and then just ended up realizing that really wasn't her passion either. So again, remembering what you really want to achieve and what your end goal is. And then she started looking at just community based, and obviously Walgreens, and specialty with that as well. And if you think about it too, just being an AmCare after graduation, it's very similar to more so that community based rather than a hospital. So I would say just taking a step back, really broadening your search, even if it's something that you really want, just don't forget about everything else, consider everything. And then obviously narrow down your options too, because when you're in there for those interviews, you're really learning about the program and making sure that you're asking good questions about the program and really thinking about things during that time.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And Catherine, how about you? What's your biggest piece of advice?
My biggest piece of advice is to really practice those interview skills. So take any opportunity you can whether that's practicing with friends or if there's an organization that's holding like mock interviews, go to those. And this is so that you'll be more prepared, but it's also so that you feel more like relaxed during your interviews and you can show your personality because this is, like I said before, it's a time where you get to interview the program, but the program really gets to see who you are. You can only tell so much on a written application or your CV.
A great piece of advice. I definitely echo that. It should not be your first time answering the question, the question from the interview of something like it, the answer coming out. You should have verbalized it. So many people say, like, oh yeah, I'll practice, or I know what I'm going to say. No, until you say it out loud, you can work on, record yourself. I did that once, and it is vulnerable. You have to be really vulnerable because you're like, I do not like watching and listening to myself. Um, but so but I forced myself, and I'm like, okay, you take notes, you work on things, get rid of the ums and be able to articulate your thought well. Agreed. So practice, practice. I know most schools offer those mock interviews. There's online interview help. I know there was one at the university where I was. It would record you. It would tell you how many ums you said during your answer. It would give you critical. AI is crazy, and so you could look into those platforms as well. So great advice.
And definitely look at questions that are out there. I know ASHP has a list of potential interview questions. Use those resources that you have.
Absolutely. All right. Great advice. Okay. So let's think of other things to talk about. So let's maybe think of advice earlier on. If you're a P2 or a P3 and you're listening to this, so you're not going into to apply for residency this round. And for those of you, if you are a P4 and you're not as familiar, it's never too late, and you have plenty of time. Applications are usually due January 2nd or later. So they're not supposed to have the due date before then. So you have plenty of time to do that, to reach out to programs and so on. But if you're not at the P4 point and you're a P2 or P3, what would you suggest that a P2 or 3 does to set themselves up for success to pursue a residency? What should they start to get into now? Anything pop into your minds? Either of you, whoever wants to jump in first.
Sure. So I think one thing that if I went back and, and did it over again, was not to so much just skip and all the residency preparation things too. So this might not be for everyone, but since I was very much like, no, I'm not going to do a residency, my school had lots of prep classes or meetings that we could go to and learn about all the tools that you need to have a successful application. So like we're just talking about the interview prep, um, how to, have even like being professional in conversations and networking, interviewing, all the things with prepping for applications to residency programs. So, and just to understand really what they are. So just take advantage of all those opportunities to learn more about the preparation piece of completing the applications. And then again, looking for those appy opportunities and really diversifying them and not being so focused. You don't want to say no to something that you might end up really liking. Like that's the whole point of appies, is to see what you like and what you don't like. So I had some good ones and some bad ones, but I learned from all of them, right? But I also just realized what I really like to do.
Thank you. And Catherine, your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely want to echo Emma on making sure that you don't limit yourself. Um, have an open mind. If you get an appy rotation that you weren't planning on or didn't really want, just go to that rotation with an open mind because you might find that you really love it. Another thing, another piece of advice is to just get involved in any way. So that might be joining organizations. I was really big in Phi Delta Chi or going to different conferences if you are able to. Just try and get as many different experiences as you can.
Great piece of advice. You can always change your career trajectory or the things you like at any time. No one should be afraid of that. I had one of my residents, she was all hospital. She worked at a hospital in school. She was president of the ASHP chapter in school. She went out on her appies, had never worked or had experience in a community pharmacy, loved it, and was like, I'm switching my trajectory. I want to work in community. And we were lucky enough to match with her. She did excelled in the residency, is excelling in her career. So don't be afraid to make that change if you realize that something might be different than what you thought, and that's okay. So great examples. Thank you both for sharing that. um We don't have any questions submitted from the audience, so please submit, but I can keep asking. Luckily, also, I'll give Bridget some credit. Bridget's been feeding me some things on the side, so thanks, Bridget. I love this one because, yeah, a lot of candidates always want to know about projects that you do during a residency. So can each of you speak to what was your kind of major project that you did, and if there were any other projects that you feel like were impactful that you want to share? But let's start with your major projects. Let's go with Emma first.
All right. I could talk about my projects for a long time, so feel free to pull out the shepherd's hook if you need to. So my main project, well, my site, I guess I could explain a little bit about my site as background. It was focused on oncology and neurology. We did some fertility, and pulmonary. So it was kind of a happy accident that I had two major research projects. One was focused on neurology with MS patients, and then my main project that I did all my podium presentations on was for our oncology patients. So I looked at the impact that we have as specialty pharmacists in identifying drug therapy problems in our new oncology patients and our adult patients. So then I took it a step farther and looked at if these patients are coming from clinics that have a pharmacist embedded within their care team at the clinic, or patients that are coming to our pharmacy that don't have that pharmacist presence in their care team at the clinic. And so I compared, and so drug therapy problems that would be like the having incorrect directions, or there's a drug interaction. Did they have supportive care on board? For a lot of our oncology patients, we're looking for the antiemetics, DVT prophylaxis, so making sure that we're taking care of the patient as a whole, right? And then also looking to see if they discontinued their therapy at a certain time frame down the road too. So we found that there was really no difference between the two groups. We actually had one more drug therapy problem from the group that had a pharmacist on the care team. So it was interesting to really dissect what we do and the importance that we have in the care team. So patients just come, typically they go from the doctor right to the pharmacy, and the pharmacist, spends that, 10 minutes or 10 seconds with them at the counter, when they're doing their quick consultation. But as specialty pharmacists, we're spending more time looking at the patient as a whole, just before we even call them to go through the medications, right? So making sure that their therapy is appropriate for them, and then talking to them. And our consultations could be, 30 to 40 minutes if that's what the patient needs as well. So that's a little bit of a tangent on the project. But all of that to say is we have impact as community-based pharmacists, right? And especially in my specialty practice. So it was really exciting to take those findings and talk with at these conferences. So I had a poster presentation at APHA, and then a podium presentation in a Midwestern conference. And then I actually took my research to an oncology conference down in Texas right towards the end of the program. So it was kind of a fun way to wrap things up. But then it connected me too with all these oncology pharmacists that, if I didn't do this project or even, the program, I never would have had the opportunity to complete. So and then my other project, I'll just real quickly jump
Yeah,
in.
real quick. We want to make sure Catherine has a minute. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So we'll make sure we'll come back around if we have time for the second project. But Catherine, tell us about your major project.
Yeah, so my major research project was a survey that was sent out to patients across our network and also providers. So, what I was looking at was who initiates the conversation of starting a compounded medication. Like, do patients believe that they started and providers think that they started it? Do they agree or do they disagree on who starts that? And we found that most, both patients and providers believe that the providers initiated that conversation. So you use that information to really focus on marketing and just making sure that providers know what compounded medications are available in within our network. And then another project that I worked on was a quality improvement project. So we have all these different pharmacies that are completing testing on their products, such as potency and sterility testing, but there wasn't a way for us to track that across all of our different pharmacies. They had different products and different labs that they were using for their testing. So I really worked on a proposal for how we could track that and how that would be important in just quality improvement.
Wonderful. You both sound like you did some wonderful, impactful projects with your work. We only have a few minutes left, so I want to make sure we have a question in our general chat. So very exciting. Thank you for submitting that. So as you probably both can see it, is there a skill that you find invaluable that you picked up on during your residency that helped you on your career journey? Whoever wants to jump in first.
So it's very general, but I would say my leadership skills is what really grew so tremendously from the time that I started. I just was, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I didn't feel very confident, just not knowing what I was doing. And then by the end, I just felt so like I did like a 180. And I preparing me for my leadership position now, I had great preceptors that helped me along the way too and prepared me for this job knowing that it was coming. So just really trying to listen and spend time with the leadership and trying to get yourself into some of those conversations too and how to handle situations and providing feedback. And I had lots of students at my site, and not every student was exceptional. So that was a really good learning experience too, on how to handle those situations. And I think that really helped me grow as a leader.
Wonderful. Thank you. Catherine, your thoughts.
I think that a skill that I picked up on during my residency was learning how to be really adaptable. This was a new program, and there were often times where things would change, and I just had to adapt to that. And in my new job, it's very different from my residency location. Um, for example, we're a 503B outsourcing facility, while innovation compounding was a 503A. So all of the prescriptions had to be patient specific, while now all of our products are shipped out to um, hospitals or clinics, and they don't have to be patient specific. So I really had to learn how to be adaptable to learn this entirely new type of pharmacy.
Great, thank you. I'm both glad you both gathered at least one of those skills, in and you recognize that you learned a ton during your residency, I'm sure as well. Well, thank you for the questions. We're towards the end of our time, so I think we'll wrap up the questions there so we don't run over to be respectful of everyone's time. If you do need further information, up on the screen now are two QR codes, so grab those real quick. I'll leave them up. It's linked to ASHP's resources for students for residency programs, and then a QR code with a link to APHA's resources about residency programs. Equal opportunity there. So thank you everybody for participating this evening. We appreciate the participation, and thank you again to Emma and Catherine. Your insights were valuable, and I hope our audience took away a lot from them. I know I did. I always learn when I meet with residents and discuss with them. So I thoroughly enjoyed talking with you. So thank you again for your time. I think I left that up long enough for people to grab the QR codes. And again, you've been here for the community-based pharmacy residency programs. We hope that you took something away from tonight and maybe sparked an interest in community residency. I did want to real quick before we end, put up there, if anyone has any questions for me about residency, I just put my email in the chat, and I had asked Emma and Catherine if you want to throw yours in the chat real quick. If anyone wants to reach out to them, they were open to anyone reaching out to them with questions. So before we end and before we stop the recording, we'll make sure that their emails are up there. Okay, there they are. We'll give them a second before we officially finished. But thank you all for joining. Thank you. Have a great evening. Enjoy the rest of the week, and everyone be well. And we'll end there. Thank you. Take care.